The year is 1874, and Francis Louis Mora is born in Uruguay. His father is Domingo Mora, a well-respected professional sculptor, and his mother is Laura Gaylard Mora, a relative of the famous Bacardi rum family. By 1881, after stays in Cuba, Spain, and New York, Domingo and Laura moved to Perth Amboy, along with Francis Louis and his younger brother. Domingo has been employed by the Perth Amboy Terracotta Company as his chief design director. Here on High Street, Domingo will set the national artistic trend for an up-and-coming terracotta boom. Across the United States, terracotta is quickly becoming a favorite architectural design material, and the Perth Amboy Terracotta Company is among the earliest manufacturers to meet that demand. With Domingo Mora at the design helm, the Perth Amboy plant advances. Terracotta orders are received from across America, from Boston to California, New York to Chicago, and even in the small town of Perth Amboy, Domingo's sculptures and designs, as well as Domingo's eventual artistic influence, grace the facades of countless buildings. Business is booming with Domingo among the very few at the top, leading the vision. Art lessons by Domingo are given to his sons, as well as other Perth Amboy residents. To this very day, terracotta graces many Perth Amboy buildings, and there is no doubt that many artistic designs were inspired by Domingo Mora's works. Francis Louis is enrolled at the Manning School, also known as the Raritan Bay Seminary, located at the corner of Water and Market Streets in Perth Amboy. It is here that Francis Louis meets the love of his life, Sophia Compton. Even as a young boy, Francis Louis is well received in Perth Amboy. New friendships begin to develop. People are impressed with the young Francis Louis as he becomes fluent in Spanish, French, and English, and many others view him as inheriting Domingo's fine artistic skill set. Around this time, Francis Louis drops his first name and simply desires to be called Louis. He signs his artwork F. Louis Mora, and he will continue to do that for the rest of his life. Nearly surrounded by the land masses of Staten Island, the Atlantic Highlands, and Sandy Hook, the Raritan Bay attracts yachtsmen throughout the latter half of the 19th century, with that trend continuing into our present day. Here, Louis Mora will be introduced to sailing by his friends, the Compton family. At the very edge of the Raritan Bay is the Perth Amboy Bluff, which rises out of the water. Here, fine homes are constructed for the elite of this small town society. The Compton homestead occupies the center of the bluff. As members of the Raritan Yacht Club, the Comptons are experienced yachtsmen. During the end of the 19th century, Sophia Compton's father becomes mayor of Perth Amboy. All this is a familiar sight to Louis Mora, who spends time here. Featured in this old photograph are a few Domingo sculptures. All of these figures are gracefully handmade. Most are commissioned works which will be cast in terracotta and eventually adorn elegant new buildings. The New York Metropolitan Opera House and Boston's John Adams Courthouse are only a few of the important buildings graced by Domingo sculptures. And much of Lower Manhattan will be constructed with Perth Amboy terracotta. Inside Domingo's studio, he and his son are captured in the middle of a discussion. And typically, the most important topic between this father and son is their artwork. At the tender age of 15, Louis Mora is accepted and enrolls at the Boston Museum School of Art. And having a strong proficiency in drawing, Louis excels in art school. In Boston, Louis is trained in European classical art techniques with a concentration in figure drawing. Nude models at this art school allow Louis to refine his ability to sketch the human anatomy, and this will serve Louis very well in the near future. For a few years, Louis takes classes at the Art Students League in New York City and then returns to Perth Amboy. Family is always important to Louis. Through his many years, Louis remains close to his mother, father, and younger brother. Back in Perth Amboy, Louis renews his friendships as well as his affections for Sophia Compton. Sophia and Louis fall in love. During 1893, Louis takes this photograph. Sophia is seated on the left with her mother adjacent. Again, the Perth Amboy waterfront and the Raritan Yacht Club become a part of Louis' lifestyle. At this time, the yacht club is located directly on a pier off Front Street. At this spot, the Comptons will employ their sailing skills with Louis as a favorite guest. The December 15, 1894 issue of Harper's Weekly features a newly discovered artist, F. Louis Mora, with his artwork on the front cover. This piece is titled The Holy Family, depicting modern people worshiping baby Jesus. At this time, Harper's Weekly is a respected newspaper with readership across the United States. This is Louis Mora's first big break, and it pays off with more commissions being sent his way. The National Academy of Design is now showing Louis' paintings, and Louis is also teaching in New York City at the William Merritt Chase School of Art, which later becomes the Parsons School of Design. At this time, classrooms are typically segregated by gender. Here, Louis' female art students pose for a snapshot. Skeletons are not unusual in the art classroom. Bones are used to study the human form and its structure.
Draw, draw, draw is my advice to the pupils. Look out for paint. Don't get loose with the brush until you know something first. F. Louis Mora, Personal Pocket Diary, 1899.
On the walls of the Lynn Public Library in Massachusetts is a 34-foot-long mural entitled The Awakening of Ignorance by Louis Mora. Via a recommendation from William Merritt Chase, Louis receives his first large commission. Louis' passion for art is only surpassed by his love for Sophia Compton, and Louis affectionately nicknames her as his Sonia.
Now for September. It will be the most memorable month of my life, as Sonia and I will be united forever. God give us success, for happiness will not be wanting. F. Louis Mora, 1900.
On September 12, 1900, Louis Mora and Sophia Compton are married at the Compton Estate in Perth Amboy. Everyone knows that Louis and Sophia are deeply in love, so the marriage is no surprise. Down the driveway in the back of the home, the Comptons arranged a separate art studio for Louis, and this studio is in constant use. Over the next 3 decades, Louis will complete many masterpieces right here in Perth Amboy. The newlyweds honeymoon in North Carolina. In his diary, Louis draws this image of them on horseback, which is one of Sophia's favorite pastimes. They move into an 18th Street apartment in Manhattan, although this couple visits Perth Amboy on a weekly basis.
I am starting a Christmas cover for Harper's Bazaar, which I really think will be one of my best bits in decorative cover work. A result of being able to use my own composition for designing bits for color reproduction, I found the means in glazed watercolor. Some very rich effects can be gotten in this way. F. Louis Mora, Personal Pocket Diary, 1900.
Sophia Compton Mora is happily married to Louis and also becomes a model for many of his paintings. Here, Sophia reads to her sister Lola Compton, who is wearing a striking red dress. Within the Comptons' Perth Amboy home are many works by Mora. That's not unusual, as Louis and Sophia spend time here. And of course, Louis' studio is just a few yards away, right in the Compton backyard. Depicted here is Sophia with her grandmother. Sophia's expression is of loving concern. Both ladies have always been deeply attached to each other. The grandmother is going blind, yet is knitting. By 1907, Louis is elected to the National Academy of Design, a very prestigious organization. Louis will serve on the Academy's jury, which selects artworks to be displayed. Here among his aging and well-known Academy peers sits a youthful-looking Louis Mora. At this time, Louis is hired by Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Clemens, to illustrate his autobiography. Besides this and other commissions, Louis teaches at the Students' Art League. And one of his young students will eventually surpass the teacher, that being the now famous Georgia O'Keeffe. The following year, Sophia and Louis travel to Spain. Throughout this vacation abroad, Louis paints numerous works of art.
While it is fine to have a model, I also make use of my imagination a great deal when at work, and I find the combination most excellent. After much waiting and hard disappointment, I found a combination of Mercedes and a young girl downstairs for my picture. The effect of the two together is very fine, so that team wired up my picture without further delay. F. Louis Mora.
While on location in the area of Granada, Louis paints these Spanish courtyards.
I started in on my picture of a Spanish garden. The color in just this one alone is perfectly beautiful, like a lot of soft-colored jewels put together. A difficult but lovely bit to paint. F. Louis Mora, Personal Pocket Diary, 1909.
At Valencia, several paintings are completed on the beach. Bold colors show women bringing meals within baskets to the fishermen. Oxen are pictured in the breaking waves, pulling longboats in full sail to the shoreline. Apparently, a fine day's catch has been made by all. Eventually, Sophia and Louis return home. At this time, ferry service from Manhattan to Perth Amboy is twice daily, with a pleasant ride straight down the Arthur Kill, which the Moras use. Throughout the following years, Louis enjoys painting summer scenes in Perth Amboy, with the Compton family being one of his favorite subjects.
I never have realized so fully the wonderful opportunities that Amboy furnishes for painting as I have this summer. The subjects along the shore are quite remarkable and of delightful compositions to select from. The lines always splendidly broken up. F. Louis Mora.
Entitled At the Helm, this sketch by Louis depicts a yachtsman on the Raritan Bay. Sailing with friends and relatives is a favorite pastime for the Moras and the Comptons. The bay, the river, and the Arthur Kill attract affluent people, and on these waterways many ladies enjoy the sport of sailing along with their gentlemen. On the left, Lola Compton is pictured with her sister Sophia Mora. Family is very important to Louis, and as so, it is the subject of numerous paintings. In 1911, Domingo Mora suddenly dies. Domingo's talent will not be forgotten, as to this very day, his terracotta sculptures adorn buildings across this nation. After a period of mourning, Louis returns to his easel.
I do not know of anything more beautiful in nature than the color qualities in a nude figure contrasted against some lighter background, with catchlights and sheen to it. It is simply ravishing in the range of tone and color. F. Louis Mora, Personal Pocket Diary, 1912.
Commuters within the interiors of trolleys and trains become artistic subject matter. Both Perth Amboy and New York use these methods of transportation. Hopping on a trolley from one end of town to another is highly favored by most, as few families own automobiles.
It is a pleasure to create things, for in just the same proportion to our joy in doing something comes the greater joy of planning to do something finer. A creative mind never has enough tomorrows in which to conquer new fields. F. Louis Mora, Personal Pocket Diary, 1912.
Louis designs a mural for the Perth Amboy Raritan Yacht Club. At that time, the yacht club was located on Front Street. The mural was lost when the building later burned down.
When an artist is truly pressed and things about him seem to go rather against his wishes, there comes a strength, a desire, a gathering of his nervous energy that often brings out his best efforts. The comfort lies in the achievement. We soon forget the cares. F. Louis Mora.
Sophia and Louis spend their weekends in Perth Amboy, and Louis continues to paint within his Water Street studio.
Cold as anything could be this morning, I got up a bit earlier and painted a sketch of the frozen bay. The color was exquisite this morning, and the light wonderful over everything. F. Louis Mora, January 1912.
Jeannie Cartier is a fine young dancer. In between rehearsals for an up-and-coming Cole Porter musical, Louis paints her standing in front of a theatrical curtain. The rich colors of her attire accent the graceful pose. Here we see a bold orange waistband against colored beads that secure flowing decorations, a gold top with lavender reflections, and a fair skin tone contrasted against the dark background. As with the Jeannie Cartier portrait, Louis continues his use of color texture on this canvas entitled Spanish Color Fantasy. Commercial work comes in. All types of advertisements are designed by Louis. Some of these include artwork for the women's suffrage movement, a Hollywood silent movie starring Douglas Fairbanks, as well as other corporate venues. During 1916, Sophia Compton Mora gives birth to Emma, her first child. Baby Emma passes away, and as a result, Louis paints Sophia in black. Within the next 2 years, Sophia is pregnant again. This time, a healthy baby girl is born. The Moors name her Rosemary. This child becomes the subject matter of numerous paintings by Louis, as Rosemary is the joy of his life. And Amboy continues as the Moors' home away from home.
A remarkable freezing up of the bay at Perth Amboy has certainly messed up the docks about the waterfront. I like to skate, and I cannot say that I love the weather that furnishes that pleasure. We are always asking for the impossible. F. Louis Mora, 1918.
At this time, American troops are arriving on the European battlefields. World War I is in full progress, and Louis is commissioned to draw for the war effort.
Started my poster for the Children's Year. I feel that I have a splendid chance of marking a very strong thing out of it, full of life, light, and color. May the spirit of those blessed men on the other side not waver, and may our own men be able to give them the help soon that they so much need. F. Louis Mora, 1918.
Throughout the 1920s, Rosemary continues to bring happiness to Sophia and Louis. Many sketches, watercolors, pastels, and oils of this child memorialize Louis's devotion to his daughter. And Louis builds a brand new home for his family in rural Gaylordsville, Connecticut, while maintaining his Perth Amboy and New York City studios. In 1925, Gwen Compton is born. She is the niece of Louis. As with his own daughter Rosemary, Louis adores baby Gwen, resulting with a fine painting made as a gift. In this portrait, Louis paints blocks. 9 stands for 9 months old. The letter G is for Gwen, along with her other initials on other blocks. And of course, 2 and 5 represent the year of Gwen's birth. Gwen Compton owns and treasures this splendid artwork throughout her long life. Do you have any fond, special memories or a special story that you remember about your uncle, the artist?
Well, I don't know. I know he was fun to be around, and he was very handy, I cut myself very badly. I stabbed myself in the leg here, and I hit like a main thing. And he came flying out of the studio. This was up in Connecticut. And he got his hands on that and got that stopped until we got to a doctor.
Oh.
Or I would have been a goner. But as a kid, I had a knife and I was slashing grass. And I slashed right into my leg.
Oh my goodness.
So it was, he saved my life, I would say, offhand. Somebody had to stop the bleeding.
Gwen lives out her life within this beautiful Water Street home. In the Compton homestead, as well as the newly constructed Mora, Connecticut home, Louis paints the family. Family is inspirational to Louis, bringing a certain joy to his paintings. And the Christmas season is yet another reason for bringing the relatives together. A wonderful time for Louis, Sophia, and Rosemary.
Get away from too much realism, to use more the forms which serve to symbolize, and bring in the use and play of the mind instead of the eye, to create so that the forms are tangible, as are the walls of a building, and at the same time not show the mechanisms with this and many others. Make a work of art. F. Louis Mora.
In the Roaring Twenties, Louis is experimenting with different styles, a contrast from his prior Spanish compositions. Form, color, and composition take on a more contemporary perspective.
An artist works out his own problems, developing his own ideas and being careful to avoid getting into manners of any kind. Every problem undertaken should be from any set rules which governed the one preceding it. This is one of the reasons there are so few artists. F. Louis Mora.
The year is now 1931. Sophia and Louis invite 2 friends to dine in their Connecticut home. Sophia ventures out into the forest, picking natural ingredients for dinner, including mushrooms, similar to those in her hometown of Perth Amboy. During the meal, the mushrooms do not appeal to Louis or the guests, so Sophia is the only one who eats them. Late that same night, she experiences severe stomach pains, and Louis rushes her to the nearest hospital. Sadly, Sophia dies, as the mushrooms were poisonous. Being extremely distraught, Louis cannot be near any reminders of his wife. He closes up his studios in New York, Connecticut, and Perth Amboy. He takes Rosemary out of school, and she travels with her father to California. They stay with Louis's younger brother. Here, Louis paints his nephew, along with other Western scenes. In the following year, Louis meets up with an old friend, now a wealthy widow. They are married during the summer of 1932. Rosemary and her new stepmother do not get along. Within a short period of time, she is sent off to boarding school. Therefore, not only has Rosemary lost her mother, but now she is separated from her father. Oddly enough, Louis consents to all this, but he pays a dear price. That is, his creative vision seems to suffer. While Louis paints murals for the WPA, along with other projects, many experts seem to agree that Mora's artwork throughout the 1930s is not up to par with his prior creations. Today, one of Louis Mora's paintings hangs in the White House. It is the official portrait of President Warren Harding. As a result of this honor, Louis receives yet another commission. The Carnegie Corporation requests Louis to paint a portrait of its founder, Andrew Carnegie. Numerous libraries built via Carnegie's philanthropy receive prints of this image. The loss of his beloved first wife, the years of separation from his daughter, and hard economic times seemed to wear Louis down. Following a brief illness in 1940, Louis Mora dies. Not quite 66 years old, Mora passes away in his New York City apartment. Nowadays, many art historians and gallery experts refer to Mora as an American master. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, Yale University, the San Diego Museum of Art, the White House, and the Dallas Museum all display Mora's works. Mora's paintings remain a testament to his skill and vision. And this art legacy includes numerous compositions completed in a small backyard studio located on Water Street in the town of Perth Amboy.